Hey guys, so like I promised, I have a video here for you of how to continue with our Ugly Doll project today. So our first step is, if you didn't finish cutting out your two pieces, your front and your back to your Ugly Doll, you need to finish that today. And I've left some extra pieces if anyone needs them. But remember, we're not going to cut any details out of the large pieces. We'll be using all of our scraps, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So very carefully cutting out, remembering that it works best when you keep your scissors flat on the table and move the fabric around. You can always come at it from another side. Also, if you cut close to this axis, instead of closing your scissors all the way, it'll be a lot easier to cut. So finish cutting out your patterns for your Ugly Dolls, and I'm only going to finish cutting out this front part for you now so we can get started on the details. So remember, your Ugly Doll has two sides, but you only need to put the face on the front side, although you could also add details to the back if you have time. So here we go. Here's our Ugly Doll, and the reason I flipped it over is we're using our Sharpie to trace around shapes, but we don't want the Sharpie to show in the end. So I'm going to add my details to the side that doesn't have any Sharpie showing around the outside. So today we're adding all of our details with glue and fabric, and later on we are going to be sewing them. So make sure they're glued down really well, but I'll show you how not to use too much glue or it'll be hard to sew later. So today you're cutting out the eyes, the nose, mouth, any other details you want to add, and you can use any fabric from the scrap bin. So that means all our pieces of felt that came from cutting out our patterns and any other pieces you find. One thing I want to tell you is that there are lots of different kinds of fabric, but the same fabric we used for our front and the back, are best for your small details, and then use other pieces of fabric for large details, or if you want to add some clothes onto the top, you can as well. So for today we're going to start with some eyes, any shape you want. I've included in your tubs today a sheet like this, so you can cut out these shapes and trace around them if you want any kinds of different sizes of circles, or different kinds of mouths, or eye shapes, or nose shapes. And you absolutely do not have to use these shapes, but you can cut them out and trace them around them if you would like these shapes. Otherwise, you can just cut out shapes, or you can first use Sharpie. So I'm just going to cut out a couple of half circles out of this purple to start out. So I'm not going to cut right out of the middle. I'm going to try to stay close to the edge so I'm not wasting any fabric for anyone else. And if you want them to be exactly the same, you can cut one out like that and then lay it back on top and cut around it so you have exactly the same shape. So these are going to be the beginnings of my eyes, and I can just lay them out on my Ugly Doll here like that. And I would suggest that you don't glue until you kind of figure out all the details you want for your face. So I'm going to also do some eyebrows out of this yellow. So I could think about the shape with a Sharpie if I want. I can also just, again, cut it freehand, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut out some shapes. I doubled it up so I could cut out the same shape. Another way to cut out the same shape, I'm going to make some sort of triangular eyebrows, I think. So I've cut a big triangle and I'm going to cut it in half to create these shapes for my doll here. And then I can start thinking about if I want to add a mouth or anything else to my doll. I think I'm going to have kind of a, he's looking a little angry. I'm going to keep up with that, and I'm going to use a rectangle for the mouth, laying that out like that. I don't think my doll's going to have a nose, but I am going to add some triangular teeth. Here, maybe one coming up. Like that. And once you have your details, and you feel free to layer details, and you can add details down here as well. I could add some buttons maybe to the front here. Maybe I'll do that with yellow. I like to create repetition in my artwork, so I'm going to make some kind of rectangular buttons. Cutting out a line out of my yellow, and then I'm just going to cut that apart into some pieces. just like that for my ugly doll. And then I'm going to go ahead and start gluing. So with the glue, today we're using a tacky glue, and a lot of these tacky glues, this glue is a glue that will stick a little better than our white glue and a little faster, but you don't want to use very much of it, because if you put too much when we go to sew on top, then it's not going to work as well. So if yours isn't open, if it's not squirting out like this, just ask someone and we'll poke a hole in it with one of our needles. Some of the lids have been lost, and that's fine. So when you go to glue this on, you're sharing one at your table, so make sure you're sharing. You really just need a couple dots on the back, about like that, to glue it down. You want enough to get it really well glued down, but not so much that it makes it hard for your needle to go through later. So go ahead and continue gluing all your pieces on. So you really want to make sure, and I'll have your substitute teacher today let you know when you have about 10 minutes left before cleanup. You want to make sure that you glue everything down today, because these little pieces will get lost in your folders. Okay. And that's all there is to it. So by the time I come next time, I'd like everyone to have both the front and the back of your ugly doll cut out. Do not glue them together. So do not glue the front to the back. We'll be sewing them together. And I'd like to have all of the details that you want glued onto the front of your ugly doll. If you do finish early today, please work in your journal, but don't be up wandering around the classroom. Please be helpful. Remember that at any point, if the substitute thinks that the class is not under control, we'll stop and just work in our journals, because I do want these to turn out really beautifully. All right, or as beautifully as an ugly doll can be. We will see you guys next week.